Hello everyone and welcome inside Rogers Center for the first of a three-game set in the AL East between the Baltimore Orioles and the Toronto Blue Jays. And these Blue Jays lost 2 of 3 to the Yankees over the weekend, did take the final game of that set. And meanwhile, these Orioles have heated up a little bit since the last time we saw them in Baltimore just last week. And it'll be Trent Thornton on the mound for the Blue Jays today. He's had a really good start to his season.
And if you want to talk about heating up, Trent Thornton has really gotten hot as of late. Someone that isn't really getting too much attention on this Jays team, but out of the number 5 spot in the rotation, he's boasting a 2.86 ERA, and that's off back-to-back great starts against Boston. The last one, it was here at home where they won a game 4-3. He went 5, giving up 2. Before that, he dazzled at Fenway, throwing 8 scoreless innings with just 5 hits allowed, no walks, no runs.
Yeah, he was lethal in that outing. And even his last one, very solid. And so we'll see what he has in store for us today as he tries to build a very good second-year campaign. We're underway here in Toronto. We thank you for joining us for Game 1 of this 3-game set. Baltimore, Toronto. Dome's open once again tonight as the sun continues to set over Toronto. 3 straight days now the Dome's been open, so fans are treated to a nice view of the expensive condos and, of course, the CN Tower. And it's 2-1 count to Austin Hayes, leadoff hitter. We've seen the Baltimore lineup change a little bit since the last time we saw them. Hayes was more cleanup. Now he's leading off for them.
And the changes they've made have worked. As of late, they got swept over the weekend in Chicago against the White Sox. But I mean, before that, if you look at what they've done, they took 1 of the 3. Actually, really started. Well, their season got off to the wrong foot. They lost 20 of their first 22 games. Then they got things under control. Took 2 of 3 in Los Angeles against the Angels. Then we saw the Jays come into Camden Yards and they managed to pick 1 game off the Jays. Then they took, believe it or not, 4 straight games against the Royals. And the Royals are a team that we saw here in Rogers Center that have a completely renovated pitching staff. Breakout performances from Mike Montgomery, Danny Duffy, Jacob Junis, all looking very sharp. Baltimore managed to take 4 straight games against them despite all of that. And now they've won 7 of their last 12, as I mentioned, despite going 2-20 to start the year.
Nice little 2014 ALCS rematch. As that one's hit in center field, it'll get down to be a base hit in front of Anthony Alford. So after a leadoff walk to Hayes, Alberto now singles. So runners at first and second here.
And the center fielder who ranged over to pick up that single. Not Randall Grichuk today. It's actually Anthony Alford out in center field as Grichuk gets a rare day off after playing each of the games against both Boston and New York to start the homestand. The other changes around the infield is Joe Panik remains at second base as Biggio gets the day off. It's Danny Jansen behind the plate as McGuire is off again, and Gurriel returns to left field to join Teoscar Hernandez in the 2 corners out there.
Yeah, we saw Jansen get a day off yesterday, and Grichuk's played a lot recently, so it makes sense to get Jansen in, but take Grichuk out. As that one's hit to second, chance for 2, and they get it. Blue Jays complete double play. Runner advances to third in the form of Austin Hayes. So it's great to have you with us today on the Virtual Jays Network. Jackson Farough alongside Drew Frank calling this one. And we're well into the season now. Jays have 20 wins. And have looked excellent at points. They've looked really in control at other moments, and other moments they've looked completely lost. That's the joys of a young team still working their way as Iglesias grounds out. So it'll be Renato Nunez with 2 out and the runner at third.
Nunez has been the hottest bat in this Orioles lineup, and not particularly close. Leads the team with 5 home runs, but he's the only guy with more than 1 home run.
Drills that one foul. Yeah, real power bat. He really emerged last season. We talked a little bit about it when we saw these Orioles not that long ago on that recent road trip the Jays had. And Yeah, just 26 years old. He'd only played 30 games prior to last year. Comes in, gets a full season, 151 games, 31 home runs, 90 RBI, 244 average for a 771 OPS. I mean, my goodness, you talk about a player really blooming given the opportunity as he strikes out there. And so more on the DH a little bit later as Thornton gets a strikeout to wrap up this inning. No runs allowed after a little bit of scare early. And we'll see Asher Wojciechowski up next for Baltimore. So it'll be Asher Wojciechowski making his second start versus the Blue Jays this season.
And we saw him at Camden Yards, where he pitched 5 innings, just allowing 2 runs, and prevailed over the Blue Jays ace Hyun-Jin Ryu, as it was a bit of a rotational mismatch. Here the rotations are in sync, and the 2 number 5s for both teams go tonight. It'll be the 2 number 1s going tomorrow. But Wojciechowski, as I mentioned, rose to the challenge and bested Ryu. He then rolled that into his next performance, where he beat Kansas City in a very similar line, throwing out 5 innings of 1-run ball.
So Bichette, the leadoff hitter, pops up to second, and he's retired. So we take a look here at this Baltimore defense. Not too many changes. Austin Hayes back in center. Alberto, as we saw, at second. Hayes in center. Santander, Anthony Santander in left. Stevie Wilkerson in right field as Dwight Smith Jr. gets a day off. Jose Iglesias at shortstop. Nunez DHing. Austin Wins is behind the plate today. Chris Davis at first, and Rio Ruiz back at third base. Joe Panic steps in. 0-2 now as he fouls that one off.
We saw Rio Ruiz DHing for a bit of the previous series. He's had some troubles at third base. He's only had 32 fielding attempts and already made 3 errors over there.
1 ball, 2 strikes.
Still a work in progress defensively for him. We'll see how manager Brandon Hyde decides to work with that. 1-2 to Panic, taken for a strikeout, looking right up the middle. For some reason it froze him. I think he maybe thought it was high. First K for Wojciechowski.
And Panic, who's got great bat on ball skills. You don't usually see him leaving the bat on the shoulder for pitches like that. Usually battles late into counts, but here Wojciechowski clearly fools him pretty badly as he goes down without a whimper.
Whoa, that's down.
You know, I think perspective is a huge thing, especially in sports. And if I told you that the Jays would be 6 games above 500 at the beginning of May, with a chance to have a team come in with just 9 wins on the year for a 3-game set at home, I think you'd call me crazy. And if I also told you that Trent Thornton had an ERA below 3, you'd throw me right into the psychiatric ward. Speaking on this Jays start through 34 games now, I think it's more than most people probably expected.
And there hasn't really been too many changes in this lineup from last year. Last year they finished with only 67 wins. That's good enough for 28 games below 500. And sure, they've overhauled the rotation and made some changes in the bullpen, but the core of the lineup is largely the same. So to have such a big change really speaks to the development that we've seen over the offseason.
Absolutely. And how about this guy at the plate right here? Development, especially defensively. I think a lot of people have taken note of the work he's put in defensively. He's incredible at third base, and he's back there today. Guerrero Jr. strikes out swinging, so Wojciechowski gets back-to-back Ks here to get through the first. Due up for the Orioles, rather, it's Santander, Wilkerson, and Wins. Hello, everyone, and welcome back on the Virtual Jays Network. As we see Anthony Santander, left fielder today, steps in. Not faring too well this season, but he's still in the number 5 hole for these Orioles. And Thornton gets back to work here. As that one, first pitch popped up, foul territory. Wojciechowski at first makes the play, one away.
Santander trying to jump on Thornton early this inning, swinging early in the count. And it only takes one pitch to get him to pop out into foul territory. Wojciechowski hauls that in, and he's a guy who's eager for his first at-bat so far tonight. He hasn't come up to the plate, but last meeting against Wojciechowski on the Friday night in Camden Yards, Wojciechowski took him deep for a home run for what was a 3-for-7 series for him in Baltimore.
So it's Stevie Wilkerson playing right field today. As he flies that one into left, Gurriel Jr. will let it bounce right in front of him. So a 1-out single for Wilkerson here.
And that one just drops in. Gurriel charging, but unable to make a play on that. Falls a few feet too short, and that is the first base runner of this second inning. With Austin Wynns coming up, who's looked surprisingly good at the plate for a catcher not known for his bat. We saw him make some solid contact in Baltimore in our first series there, and not able to find any luck with balls dropping in for him.
There's a guy who had just 70 career games heading into this season. Now he's got an opportunity there. Land of opportunity, it seems, right now in the major leagues is Baltimore. But he spent most of 2019 in AAA. Had himself a 264 average down there. Takes inside, so 2-1 count now. I think right now the catcher position in Baltimore is fascinating because you know you're not there long term with Adley Rutschman on his way up through the minors, and it's not going to take him too long to arrive, as that one sails foul. So I think for the most part, for Severino as well as Wynns, the two catchers on this roster, you know, I guess it's more about just trying to get some good numbers and just getting to be in the major leagues, getting an opportunity.
I think a similar comparison would be if you look at this Blue Jays team, kind of what Luke Maile was for this team, just a veteran catcher presence to help with some of the young pitchers that this Baltimore team has a few of, to be able to call games and help them develop, and then eventually maybe try and win another spot. Like Luke Maile, after his time in Toronto, got signed on Pittsburgh and earned himself another contract.
As that one's grounded down the line, it'll get into left field. Wilkerson will come around to third, slides in safe, so runners on the corners now just one away.
This ball hit hard down the line, only about 2 feet fair inside that third base bag, and Travis Shaw doesn't have any sort of play on that whatsoever. And Wilkerson reads that ball well, moving on contact and able to get all the way over the third now, and just a sac fly away from opening up the scoring here tonight.
So it'll be Chris Davis at the plate. We saw him, of course, in that last series, and it was pretty quiet for the most part. Solid defensively at first base still, however. And he's quickly in 0-2 count here, but a good opportunity for Davis to drive in a run or two. 0-2 taken, blocked by Jansen. He's going to throw back to third. Wilkerson still in the bag there, so just a check in. 1-2 to Davis. Thornton looks to work around runners in the corners. Swung off foul.
Davis has all sorts of success here at Rogers Center. Looking for an RBI here? Well, he's got 49 here in his career, the most of any ballpark he's never called home.
Nice. You spend lots of time in this division. You know, this ballpark, I think if you're a hitter, you'll probably come to enjoy it. We saw Brett Gardner in the last series. He loves it here. He hit 2 home runs, and he only played 2 games, for goodness sake, when he was here over the weekend. So 2-2 to Davis now. 53 home runs in 2013, 47 in 2015. Also in that 2015 season, 208 strikeouts. So he led the major leagues in both home runs and Ks. And he gets another one there, 2 away now.
Thornton gets him to swing over top of that pitch on the outer half of the zone. It looked like the splitter there. Thornton doesn't break out all that often, but here he uses it against the lefty Davis on the outer part of the plate. And as that pitch has sharp downward movement, it just drops right beneath the bat of Chris Davis.
So here's Ryu hitting 9 today. Starts off with the first pitch strike. And what a great opportunity for Ruiz here. A couple of runners on the bases. With 2 out as Thornton looks to once again escape. Pitch count's getting up there, though. This will be his 35th pitch already. Trying to get through 2. As that one's blocked by Jansen. He throws back to third once again. Precautionary.
Quick recovery by Jansen. That ball was in the dirt for only a couple seconds before he already had that up and ready to fire the third.
As that one swung on and missed, Jansen is able to get in front of it, or get it in front of him rather, makes the play. So Thornton once again escapes from a bit of a sticky situation here in the second. Still scoreless as we advance to the bottom of the inning here in Toronto. Welcome back to Toronto. As we see Travis Shaw, cleanup hitter today for the Jays. He's coming off a pretty good series against the Yankees. I liked his game. Went 2 for 4 on Friday, 1 for 3 on Saturday. Didn't do much yesterday, but nonetheless, was still productive. A couple RBI for the third baseman today. I should note, I said earlier, Guerrero Jr. was playing some more defense today. He actually gets the day off. He's DHing. It's Shaw at third, Tellez at first. Just a little note there for all you scorekeepers at home. 1-0 becomes 2-0 as that pitch misses inside.
Shaw still unable to elevate that average above 200, considering to not hit for much contact at all throughout this homestand. We saw it in Baltimore, really epitome of what he's done this so far this season. He hit a home run against Wojciechowski on the Friday night, but that was his only base hit the entire series.
No, that's in. Ball 4.
So Shaw walks, kick things off here in the second for the Jays.
Batting fifth, the catcher, number 9.
So that'll bring up Danny Jansen, the catcher. He had the day off yesterday, but on Saturday, he was awesome. Had himself a 3-run home run in the first. And so going 2 for 4 in that process. And then he actually went 0 for 5 on the Friday. But yeah, big home run on Saturday. Put the Jays up at that point 4-0. Little did we know the Yankees were going to put up 17 of their own runs. As that one sprayed into right, that'll get down. And so runners at first and second now, nobody out to kick things off here for the Jays.
And so that'll bring up Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who we've seen all throughout this Jays lineup. Up in the 2-hole recently, now he's down here in the 6-hole. So he'll have more of an opportunity with runners on base a little further down in the lineup, batting right behind the core of this lineup. And you see it here as he comes up with 2 on and nobody out.
What a great opportunity for him. I feel like I've said that a lot. I guess there's a lot of opportunity to go around in this game so far. As that one's driven into right field, should score a run. As Shaw's going to come around and try to score. He slides in, and it's 1-0 Blue Jays off an RBI single from Lourdes Gurriel Jr.
And an exceptionally rare play by Charlie Montoyo. The double hit and run with nobody out. Now this is extremely risky because this ball gets through on the right side, but if that was hit to the second baseman, you're looking at a triple play to end this inning quickly. Works out though as the run comes in to score. Shaw from second wouldn't have had the speed to get in all the way from second without the head start, especially with that ball not hit particularly hard in front of the right fielder. Works out for Montoyo. They roll the dice and they get a run out of it.
Exactly. The gamble pays off. That's the most important thing. The first three base runners, or hitters I should say, have all reached in this inning for the Jays so far. Tellez will look to continue that. Got Wojciechowski a little bit on the ropes here early. First and second, nobody out. Already a run scored with some power coming up. And Tellez and Hernandez on deck here. 2-1 now. Tellez 205 on the year. Swings and misses there. Had a home run against Baltimore. His first of the year. Was part of a 2-home run inning off of Asher Wojciechowski. It was, of course, his last inning of that start back on April 24th. 2-2 to Tellez. Swung on and missed. 3 straight strikes, all swinging, and Tellez goes down.
It's tough for Tellez, a guy that really likes to get the ball up and elevated. He can hit for some power. Here he's got 2 runners on base and a chance to make a difference in this game early on and set the tone for this Jays team that's trying to build off of yesterday's win, but he swings through that one and goes down quietly on just 3 pitches.
Here's Teoscar Hernandez, who last time out against Baltimore went 1 for 8 in that series, and just against the Yankees was 0 for 7. As that one's taken high, 2-0. Hernandez struggling at the moment, so he's kind of down lower in the 8-hole at the moment, hitting 189 now in the year. He drills that one, and it's popped up, way up into the night sky. And the play is made by Ruiz over there on the third base side. 2 away now.
Well, after the first 3 reach, the next 2 fail to get the ball out of the infield. Strikeout by Tellez, the foul out right now by Teoscar Hernandez, and they'll come down to Anthony Alford to try and add on to what's already been 1 run in for the Blue Jays.
Checks his swing, it's in the zone anyway, strike 1. Alford hitting 170 on the year, pretty quiet as well. And he only appeared, let's see, just once in the Yankees series. And went 1 for 4. As he strikes out there. So Wojciechowski works quickly and escapes what could have been quite a damaging inning for him. It's just 1-0 Blue Jays. They do cash in 1 run. So they take the lead into the third here in Toronto.
Take a look at the Jays pitching so far this season, and the guy on the left of your screen, Nate Pearson, debuted yesterday, picked up his first win in his first game, and you're seeing some pretty impressive numbers from these Blue Jays. Third in the American League in ERA. They were second before allowing the 17 runs to New York over this past weekend, but even after that explosion by the Yankees offense, they still are in the top 3. It just speaks to how impressive they've been so far before that game.
Whew, close play there at the bag as Tellez flipped to Thornton. Hayes has some speed, challenged it there, but he is retired.
In the first inning, it was Thornton walked Hayes, and leadoff walks are always dangerous. Here he's able to get him out and prevent the threat. Much better way to attack the top of the order. As you mentioned, a close play, and that's one of the reasons you see him moved up from cleanup to leadoff. He's got a bit of pop to bat down in the order, but he's got the wheels to make it work up top too.
As that one hits him, Alberto is hit on the left arm there, so Thornton losing control a little bit. Alberto reaches. He's reached twice today now. That'll bring up Jose Iglesias, who is 0 for his last 15. Starts off fouling that one off, 0-1. You talk about Jose Iglesias. Here's a guy who, like the shortstop position, if you're lacking in that department, like a Baltimore is, and you just need a veteran who can give you some serviceable defense, Iglesias is your man. Now, he's 0 for his last 15. I think it's interesting he's still hitting in the 3-hole, but you know what? He started to hit in the 3-hole in the Jays series, and after that, Baltimore went on a good run, so maybe there's something to that.
Yeah, we saw him in the one game he batted third. He went 0 for 3, and I believe that was the start of his 15 hitless at-bat streak that he carries into today's game. But yeah, he's going to do a lot more than just hit for you.
Hits a shot for 1 to first 4-2. So Jays get the inning-ending double play here. Wipes out the base runner. 2 double plays grounded into by Iglesias today already. As we head to the bottom with a third here in Toronto.
Leading off for the Jays, the shortstop, Farough. Yes.
Ball. Counts 1-0. Ball match outside.
And the run that came around to score was a leadoff walk to Shaw. You always hear, for good reason, about the dangers of walking the leadoff batter in an inning, and comes back around to bite Wojciechowski last inning. We'll see if he attacks Bichette a little more here.
And I think you look at this lineup for the Jays, and you've got guys like Bichette, who Bichette seems to have found his way a little bit here. He's starting to hit on a bit more of a consistent basis. His average is still in the dumps, and for a little while it still will be, I think, as that one's taken inside full count now. But a guy like Jansen really starting to heat up. Even a guy like Shaw has been a lot more productive. In the middle of this lineup getting going. Big things getting a guy like Hernandez going. Alfred's been quiet. Even Tellez. Not a whole lot from him either. As Bichette walks. Again, another leadoff walk. There you talk about it. And now Panic will come aboard.
I think for me, it's Teoscar Hernandez is the one guy that I would circle in red pen as someone you really want to see turn it around quickly. Because when he's right, I mean, he can hit above 250. He's shown potential to be able to do that. And with power and some speed. Like, we've seen him steal a couple bases already, 2 for 2. We've seen him play some relatively solid defense. There's only been 1 or 2 lapses, and through 35 games, I mean, a big enough sample size that 1 or 2 lapses isn't going to kill you. But just he hasn't done it at the plate yet. And that's a guy that I would really like to see become more consistent and really work that average back to where it should be.
26 home runs last year, as well as a .230 average for Hernandez. As that one's driven foul. 125 games Hernandez got into, mainly in left. This year he's in right. 1-2 to Panic, taken low, ball 2.
And Panic, too, he's been good at Rogers Center. And I mean really good. He's got a .414 average at home, just 150 on the road. Some more consistency thing with him as well. And that .414 includes his first home run of the season he hit against the Yankees. He's been really good at the Rogers Center, and one of the reasons you see him in here today with Biggio off.
Biggio, another guy who gone a little cold as of late. Although he was pretty good yesterday. Had himself a home run, just his second of the year.
3 balls, 2 strikes.
And then the game before on Saturday went 1 for 3 with a walk. So some positive signs. He also has been rather quiet. Struggled in the leadoff position. Full count once again, this time to Panic. Taken high, so back-to-back walks to kick things off in the third.
And big picture here for the Blue Jays. They've overperformed their expectations so far because of how good the pitching staff's been, but they've done it in spite of what the lineup's done, because they haven't hit well at all. Almost down the whole lineup, it's underperforming everywhere. And their record so far looks good. They're well above 500, as they were expected to be, a little lower down in the division, but makes you wonder where this team could be right now if they're hitting how they're expected to.
No kidding. I think critics had it all backwards. I don't think anybody penned this bullpen to do what they're doing, especially the back end. You look at Bass all of a sudden. Leading the league in holds. You have Giles leading the American League in saves. One-on Guerrero Jr. swung on and missed. And even a guy like Yamaguchi, what he's been able to do coming over from Japan. Wilbur Fonts had a nice year. Guerrero Jr. strikes out. First out of the inning. Back-to-back Ks for... 2 Ks on the day for Vladdy.
And 5 on the day for Wojciechowski. Struck out Vlad twice. He struck out Panic earlier in the game. And then he struck out the 7 and 9 guys, Tellez and Alford, in last inning when he had 2 guys on and managed to get out of it via pop out and those 2 strikeouts.
Wojciechowski, 31 now, debuted back in 2015. Actually a first-round pick by Toronto, and then traded to Houston as part of a package for the man we saw over the weekend, Jay Happ. As that one's taken inside, ball 1.
And not the first time he's pitched at the Rogers Center either. Actually, as a member of the Cincinnati Reds in 2017, he was here for interleague play, where he pitched 4 innings, gave up 4 earns, 4 hits, and was pulled before the start of the 5th.
See how long he lasts today. Working away in the 3rd inning here. Travis Shaw with a couple runners on. Full count once again to a hitter here. We've seen that go out to Bichette and Panic, now to Shaw. So that pitch count up to 53 here. Payoff to Shaw, taken. So 3 walks in this inning alone for Asher Wojciechowski. The bases are loaded for Danny Jansen. What an opportunity for him. He's already got a single in the 2nd. Hit a 3-run shot the other day. Yeah, he's been one of the Blue Jays' most reliable and really better hitters on the year. You see that average up at 277. So good opportunity here for the catcher.
And that pitch selection from Wojciechowski surprises me. He goes to the changeup away there and ends up walking Shaw. You'd think he would go to the fastball, especially after 2 walks to start the inning, but he trusts his off-speed pitch enough to throw it in that 3-ball count to Travis Shaw, who of course takes it for ball 4, and now the bases are loaded without a single base hit yet.
1-1.
1-1 to Jansen. Checks his swing, strike 2 now. So Wojciechowski working ahead. These are the kind of opportunities you got to take advantage of. especially the way Thornton's been a little bit shaky as well. As that one's popped into center. Hayes is there, makes the play. Runner's going to try to tag. And he's going to be out. Bichette, a poor decision there. Tries to tag. And that's the inning. They go from bases loaded, 1 out, to being retired. Welcome back. So we'll see Renato Nunez, who struck out in the first, come back up. Trent Thornton had his first 1-2-3 inning in the third, so he'll be looking to build on that. Starts off with a curveball in there for strike one. What do you think the key is for Thornton in this start? You know, based off his last two, what's been working for him? Because that one's flown out to right.
Well, he's been most effective, and surprisingly effective, by nibbling around the edges of the zone. He faced a Red Sox lineup that, sure, you can say it's not as strong as it was just a couple years ago when they made that World Series championship run. But, I mean, you still got the bats of J.D. Martinez and Devers and Bogarts and Benintendi, and there's all sorts of pop in that lineup. I mean, even Christian Vasquez has pop. So he was able to fluster those lineups by living on the edges, jamming hitters inside with the fastball, but not leaving it inside over the heart of the plate. Because working on the inner half is very different than working on the black on the inside corner. And he's been very effective to get just far enough out of the sweet spot for the hitter. Like, you see that fastball dotted on the lower right part of the corner away from the batter, Santander there. It's really about working around the edges, and his command has surprised me especially of how he's been able to locate without making mistakes.
Santander fouls that one off. Looks like he'll head to the seats. 1-2 now. Yeah, I think keeping the walks low is a big thing as well. If he can find that fine line between, you know, as you said, nibbling the corners and the outside parts of the plate, but also not, you know, missing too much to allow too many walks. You know, last year's whip was up around 1,400, and his ERA showed it. 44 ERA last year, 154 innings. This year, his walks are down, right? I mean, he's tied for third lowest walks in the American League right now. So, you know, from that perspective, I think that's a big part of it as well. You notice no walks in that 8-inning effort. And you know, even in his last start, just 2 walks, right? And so I think that's an area he's clearly trying to improve upon. As Santander is retired.
A lot of that improvement comes from the use of the fastball specifically. Being able to command the fastball is so important for a young pitcher. And that's one of the reasons that's a lot of the focus in the minor leagues is the command of the fastball. That comes first because you need the fastball to not only throw strikes and avoid walking batters, but to set up all of your other pitches.
So Stevie Wilkerson plate now in a 2-1 count with 2 away. Thornton gets one right in there for a strike. Yeah, I mean, he's doing a good job here commanding early on and trying to get ahead as much as he can. Gets a strikeout there on Wilkerson. And so 3 up, 3 down once again for Thornton as we head to the bottom of the 4th. 1-0 Blue Jays in Toronto. Welcome back. It'll be Gurriel Jr. Tellez Hernandez up for the Jays here. So last inning we saw, the Blue Jays had the bases loaded, just 1 out after 3 walks. Jansen comes up, flies out to center, and then it was kind of shallow in center. And Bichette tries to challenge Hayes' arm by tagging at third, and he's easily thrown out. Throw was right on the money at home. Wins applied the tag very easily. Had time to have a cup of coffee by the time Bichette arrived. So quickly, that was over for the Blue Jays. So we'll see what kind of offense they can generate in this inning. In both the second and the third, they've threatened damage. It's been looming, but they just haven't been able to get those runners home.
And that third especially, the bases loaded, 1 away. That fly ball again, it looked much too shallow to us, but Bichette tries to go home, unable to get it. But even when you look at not placing the fault, especially on Bichette himself, but Guerrero struck out with 2 on and nobody out for the first out of the inning, and then Jansen wasn't able to quite sky that ball deep enough.
Full count to Gurriel. Fouls that one off. Wojciechowski, can't imagine if he has another inning like he has, where high walks or allowing a lot of base runners, can't see him going too much longer. Especially with the experience these Jays already have against him. As that one's fully into right. Play is made by Wilkerson, 1 away.
I think for Wojciechowski, a lot of what's gotten him into trouble is him being too shy to really use that fastball. We've seen him use the curveball quite a bit more today than his last start, and quite a bit more than Trent Thornton.
As that one's driven into the gap, center fielder Hayes going back, makes the play. Whew. So Les took it deep, almost got it out of here.
And that was not what I meant when I said he was too shy to use the fastball. That was a middle fastball to Rowdy Tellez. And if you think back to what we were saying about Trent Thornton, the same applies to Wojciechowski as it applies to every pitcher. Your fastball command is what sets up everything, and you need to get those fastballs around the edges of the zone to try and set up other pitches and effectively sequence your pitches. That one, when I said it's afraid to use the fastball, I mean around the edges, not middle to a power bat like Tellez. And you can see he just about gets himself into serious trouble, but Hayes is able to go out and grab that ball.
Menendez takes high, ball 2.
2 balls, 1 strike, the count.
Yeah, certainly one where your heart's pumping a little extra hard for Wojciechowski there when that ball was in the air.
It wasn't in the air for very long. That one was like a line drive to the warning track.
So a 3-run count to Hernandez. I think he'd love a ball like that, wouldn't he? Middle. You might get one here, 3-1. Takes high, so a walk for Hernandez here with 2 away. Now bring up Anthony Alford.
We saw Cole Stewart warming in the bullpen. Not sure how long the leash is for Wojciechowski here in just a 1-run game. Up to 70 pitches, and of course the Jays have only struck for 1 run against him, but they've been close and they've had multiple runners on in both the second and the thirds. Already a runner on here to start things in the 4th. Stewart, who's up, can give multiple innings. He's kind of the long relief guy for them. He's already pitched 30 2/3 in just 8 games. So if they feel the need to take Wojciechowski out of there, they've got the guy warmed up that can do it.
Alford drives that one over to first. Play is made by Davis, and the Jays are retired. So we will head now to the 5th inning here in a gorgeous evening in Toronto as that sun sets. We'll see you right after this on the virtual Jays Network. Welcome back, Virtual Jays Network. Appreciate you joining us on this Monday evening, May the 4th. No, I'm not going to say it, Star Wars fans. We appreciate you joining us. Jackson Farough alongside Drew Frank. And this one so far, kind of a tale of missed opportunities, I think, for the Blue Jays here. I mean, they've had a lot of chances, lots of runners on, because the starter for the Orioles, Wojciechowski, has been issuing lots of walks. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I count 5 walks, Drew. I'm not sure if I'm completely right about that, but 5 walks already through 4 innings. Yet the Jays only have 1 run to show for it.
And that was a trend in his past couple starts. I mentioned the 2 line scores are very similar in his outing against the Royals in Toronto. Both of them was 5 innings of work and 4 walks in each of them.
Wynn strikes out swinging there on 3 pitches. Good sequencing from Thornton to get his 5th K.
And he started that at bat by showing him the slider. It was a first pitch slider that was taken for a strike at the knees. And then he goes to the fastball to work towards the inner half before finally sending a slider inside off of the plate to induce the swing and miss.
And I think a lot of Jays fans, Thornton is a story you can really not identify with, but really appreciate, because he kind of gets traded here for Aledmus Diaz, so he's already kind of house money, if you will. They didn't really have to pay much for him. He came over from Houston. Next year he comes in, makes the team out of camp. You know, he was their starter, and he, pitched 154 innings last year in a rotation that was really all over the place. I mean, it was being held together by a bunch of popsicle sticks. As Davis strikes out, back-to-back Ks swinging here in the 5th. But 44 ERA, kind of the one guy who got thrown to the wolves a little bit last year, if that makes sense. As a rookie, probably wasn't ready for all those innings, but they gave it to him because they didn't have a lot of other options. This year, he's a little more sheltered. Number 5 starter has some more veterans ahead of him. Well, now Nate Pearson is ahead of him in the 4 hole now. In the 4 spot in the rotation, as we saw yesterday, his debut. But Thornton a little more sheltered now, a little more experienced. I think he's going to have a great year. And heading forward, he's a really interesting piece for this Jays organization.
And he's still quite young. I think you make a good point about being sheltered. He would have finished likely 2nd in innings for the Blue Jays if not for Stroman getting dealt.
So strikes out the side. More on Thornton when he comes back up, and he probably will. 11 straight batters down here for Thornton here in Toronto.
So we see Cole Stewart coming out, his 9th game of the season. He's actually a converted starter and not converted from spring training, bumped to the pen after a tough start to his season. His first 5 appearances were as a starter, but then he switched spots in the rotation with Tommy Milone. Malone started as one of the lefties in the bullpen in the long relief role, but as Cole Stewart struggled, he was bumped to the bullpen. And Malone's now the 4 guy who's 0-1 since taking the spot, but we miss him in this series. Maybe we'll see him later on. But for today, it's Cole Stewart, a guy that throws a fastball, slider, changeup mix. He's going to be relying heavily on that fastball and slider. Usually you see the changeup only used against right-handed hitters.
Righty right here at the plate. Bo Bichette, 0 for 1, I should say. 1-1 count. Yeah, 2-1 as that slider misses. So Wojciechowski's only able to get through 4. That'll be more of a bullpen game, as that one's popped up right in front of the pitcher. Ruiz comes in, calls for it, and makes the play.
And Cole Stewart's seen a couple situations like this. He's 2-4 on the season, And interestingly enough, all 4 of the losses came as a starter, and both of the wins came as a reliever. So he's settled in nicely to this relief role with the team. And they've had quite a few games that have had shorter outings from their starting pitchers, as you see another one here today, and he's come in nicely in relief.
That one's hit to center. Panic flies out, so first 2 hitters Stewart faces are both retired.
The designated hitter, Vladimir.
So that brings up Vladimir Guerrero Jr., DH today. And a couple strikeouts for him in this one. A nice hitting line, though. 261 on the year. I think that's kind of more of what you'd expect from Vladdy now in his second season in the bigs. And big picture with him, we know the kind of capabilities he has. Last year, 123 games, 272 average, and 15 home runs. This year, I'd imagine he'll break right through those kind of power numbers. His slugging percentage was slugging percentage 433. I think he can improve on that. I think all his numbers will go up, aside from maybe his average.
Nope. Ball 1.
But a big year in the development for Vlad Guerrero Jr. We talked a little bit about his defense, but at the plate, he's a chance to really kind of take the league by storm if he wants to. 1-2 taken low.
I got the count. 2-2.
And he's still extremely young. Just turned 21 in the middle of March this past spring. So he's got lots of time, as he mentioned, to really grab the league and develop, but showing good strides so far.
That one is short, so he's 0 for 3 on the day. And 3 up, 3 down here for Cole Stewart in the 5th. And we'll head to the 6th inning now. Still 1-0 Toronto. Welcome back. So we'll see Trent Thornton back out on the mound for the Jays. He's looked pretty effective so far. No runs on the board. That's the biggest thing. 4 straight strikeouts. Here, he struck out the side in the 5th and ended the 4th with a K. If I count correctly, he's got himself 7 Ks on the day. So he'll go up through the 3rd time through the order now. Always the most challenging for pitchers. Starts off with Austin Hayes, who's 0 for 1 with a walk.
Talked a little bit about Hayes' speed as he almost legged out an infield hit on the ground ball. He's 4 for 4 in steals for the Orioles, which leads the team. He's the only guy with more than 1 steal for them and almost matches the entire Jays team, who only have a collective 5.
Nope. We got 3-0.
So 3-0 to the center fielder. Takes low, so 2 walks for Hayes on the day. The only hitter for the Orioles who has walked on, missed pitches. Alberto was hit in the 3rd, but that's a little different. So a free pass issued to Hayes, and then he'll bring up Hanser Alberto.
Hayes is also one of only 2 Orioles to even get into scoring position so far today. It was just Hayes who got to 2nd in the 1st and Wilkerson who got to 3rd in the 2nd, and that's it.
Here's Hanser Alberto. So first full season last year. It's his 5th season, but again, only 89 career games prior to last year, right? And was claimed off waivers 4 different times in the last 2 years. So living out of a suitcase. 2-0 swung on, right back in front of the catcher, Jansen. Going to be a tough play. He makes it. Good, calm delivery from Jansen there.
And he'll have no chance for contesting Hayes, who gets easily into second base. But nice play for Jansen. Of course, you've got to take your time with that throw. Make sure you come out of the way of the runner, because the runner's got the right of way in that lane that's designated for him. So Jansen cuts down the angle by coming out towards the pitcher's mound and delivers a strong throw to first.
Had some Gold Glove nomination last year. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw potentially another one this year. Especially early on, he's looked excellent. But how about Reese McGuire? He's got a hell of an arm behind the plate. He threw out a couple runners trying to steal in the Yankees series. So 1-1 to Iglesias, who has grounded into 2 double plays today. So he's 0 for 2. One misses low. Notice Orioles laying off that slider this time low. They were swinging on it more early. Now it's a pitch they've clearly identified as one to take. That one misses outside as well. 3-1.
That's a pitch that Thornton will go to quite often. He mostly works with that fastball slider. He'll work in the cutter a little bit, but if they're seeing that slider well, that's not a good sign for Thornton.
3-1 to Iglesias. Misses inside. So Iglesias walks, second walk issued in this inning, and we talked about how the walks can be a problem for Thornton. So now runners on first and second for Renato Nunez, the Orioles power hitter.
And if I'm Charlie Montoyo, now is when I want to start looking to the bullpen, but it's difficult because they used 6 pitchers yesterday on the Sunday afternoon game, and they used 6 pitchers Saturday on that afternoon game. In addition to 4 used on Friday night, I guess Montoyo's probably wanting to see what he can get from Thornton despite signs of trouble.
And that one's past Shaw down the third base line into left. Gurriel goes to field it. 1 run will score. And Iglesias will go to third. So Hayes comes in, and it's a tie ball game. If a 1-out single from Renato Nunez, and that'll be the day for Trent Thornton. So looking really good heading into the 6th, but runs into some issues with the walks.
And of the 4 batters he faces, he just retires the 1 as he gets the ground ball from Alberto. He leaves here today through 5 1/3 with 1 run allowed. He's looked quite sharp overall today. I mean, just 4 base hits on the day, but it was the walks that really didn't do him any favors.
Yeah, right about that. So it'll be Shun Yamaguchi in now. .278 ERA last year with Yomiuri of the NBL. As that one's laced into right. Oh, the effort made by Hernandez, but it's off the wall. Another run scores. Baltimore takes the lead. Good effort there by Santander. Jumps on Yamaguchi early here. And yeah, that one was absolutely sprayed. Or not sprayed, I should say laced down into right. So an RBI for back-to-back runners here, Nunez and Santander. And just 1 out.
Yamaguchi was one of the pitchers victimized in that 17-run drubbing from the Yankees. He was only able to get 3 outs as he surrendered 3 runs on 3 hits. A guy that was brought in by Montoyo to try and alleviate some of the pressure on the rest of the pen by going multiple innings, as he sometimes does for Montoyo, wasn't able to on Saturday.
.1-1 is hit to second. Panic makes a great play to second for 1 to first. They can't finish the double play. The runner will stay at third, however, so runners in the corners 2 away. Great defense from Panic here.
And this ball stung hard up the middle. Panic, a great job, full extension, and manages to get a piece of that one and get it to second. But Bichette, not a great pivot at second. He's got his feet set up improperly, where he's not able to drag his foot across the bag, and he has to pivot his whole body as he slides across second there. And a bang-bang play at first. You got to figure if he was set up properly to receive the double play, they might have ended the inning right then and there.
So the Austin wins 1 for 2. Struck out in the 5th. Drives that one into left field. That's a base hit down the line. Another run will come in to score. And it looks like Santana will try to come around. He'll score 2. It's a 4-1 game. The Orioles have completely opened things up here on a 2-run double from Austin Wins.
And Wilkerson's able to score all the way from first base here. He's got some speed and he shows it off. As that ball hit all the way into the corner, just shows how important it was that that double play was not turned by Bichette. And now there's 4 runs on the board for the Orioles quickly here in this 6th inning.
So Nunez, Santander, and Wilkerson all come around to score here. Pardon me, Santander was out on that double play. Good catch there. So Nunez and Wilkerson score. 4-1 game now. And Yamaguchi really running into some issues. Not able to help out Thornton and escape this inning. So 2 out. Runner at second for Chris Davis. That one's taken for a strike, so Yamaguchi gets back in the count now.
Mention that this is the road park. He's got the most RBI and also the most home runs.
Drilled into right field. If it's fair, it's gone. It's out of here. There's another couple RBI. Crush Davis shows us why he has that handle. Whew, look at this. Yamaguchi having some trouble in this inning. It's a 6-1 ball game under the night sky in Toronto.
Well, this ball's hammered hard. And Chris Davis not lacking any of the strength that he showed in his 50-plus home run seasons. He's still got the strength. It's just been he's struggled to make contact, and the strikeouts have bested him more than they used to. Here he shows off the power hasn't dipped at all as that one gets out of the air in a hurry for 2 runs on the board.
So Yamaguchi only able to get 1 out, and it was on a fielder's choice, so Sam Gaviglio comes in.
Gaviglio's the last man in this pen for Toronto that has a perfect ERA, hasn't allowed a run all season. He came in at the very tail end of that game on Saturday against New York, and he was able to finish it off after all the damage was done, but not pretty by any means. He pitched 2 1/3 in that game and was the only one able to keep a clean run column.
So Ruiz quickly 0-2 here with nobody on the path and 2 out. Really the only silver lining to bring Gaviglio in. As that one's flown into left. Gets underneath it too much. Gurriel finds it in the lights, makes the play. So the Orioles really open things up here. Put up 6 runs. And they lead big now here in Toronto as we head to the bottom of the 6th. The Jays look to start a rally. So we'll see Travis Shaw now for the Blue Jays. And things have changed rather quickly now in Toronto. It's a 1-0 game. And the Orioles really opened things up in the 6th. And they put up 6 runs. And so it is now a 5-run lead for Baltimore. A team who's pretty hot right now, and they've continued it. They've got a chance here to do some damage in Toronto the way they look. Yamaguchi comes in. He can't do much. Thornton, I mean, he got lit up in the 6th. Gaviglio has to come in to clean things up. But now, you've already used Yamaguchi. Your starters out of the game. You're down by 5. Another one of these games where it feels a little bit hopeless if you're a Blue Jays fan. But it's only the 6th inning. Middle of the order up here now. And this Baltimore bullpen is no... They aren't world beaters. You can start a rally against them. See if the Jays can get anything going. The Shaw strikes out there. And the throw to first is made. So 1 away.
Well, if you do want to attack this lineup, you're going to want to start something soon because you're here in the 6th inning with already 1 out. Paul Fry's the closer for this Orioles team, and he is a perfect 6 for 6 in save situations. The 2 setup men, Givens and Scott. Givens has a sub-3 ERA. Scott's is just a run and a half allowed. He pitched 6 innings with just 1 surrendered. And the back end of this bullpen, they haven't had many chances. In all honesty, they haven't had many save chances to really show off what they can do. But yeah, you really got to get to these middle relievers if you can.
That one's at the 3rd. Ruiz makes the play. Oh, good effort. As he was moving to his right there, away from first. Chumps makes an excellent throw. 2 away now.
And I mentioned off the top of the broadcast that he was struggling to start the season, making an error, and more often than 1 in every 11 plays he had to make, which is just not acceptable at the major league level. Here, this is a play he doesn't have to make. No third baseman's expected to be able to jump and throw and make that play in time, but he goes above and beyond and gets that out for Stewart, who's now got 2 outs here in the 6th.
Nope, outside.
2-0 to Gurriel Jr. now, 2 away. He's 1 for 2, the only RBI in the game for these Jays. And that one's laced into right center. Wilkerson comes over and gets the out, so 3 up, 3 down here for Stewart once again. As we head to the 7th, it's 6-1 Baltimore here in Toronto. So Austin Hayes back up to lead off the 7th. He led off the 6th as well. A very productive inning for Baltimore. If you missed it, well, they put up 6 runs, and you see the score there. Yeah, Thornton got lit up. Started off with a leadoff walk to Hayes. And a 1-out walk to Iglesias. And then it was just Nunez hits, Santander hits. Bichette can't finish off a double play, so Wilkerson reaches. And then a double by Wins, a home run by Davis. They just kept coming. And this is a lineup that's frankly unacceptable. The way this bullpen's been all year, the way this even guy like Trent Thornton's been all year, it's very, very disappointing. I think Jays fans probably expected a bit more. Regardless, 6-1 game. That play's made at first by Tellez, so the leadoff hitter is retired this time.
And it was the first real major disappointment from Shunya Miguchi, who had been relatively solid for this Blue Jays team, able to give some length, able to give some solid quality innings. Here he faces the Orioles 5, 6, 7, 8 hitters, only able to get 1 of them out, inherits 2 runners. They both come around to score, in addition to 3 earned runs of his own. Tough outing.
Yeah, and that's... You know what? That's going to happen, especially when you leave a pitch kind of belt high to Davis. It was an absolute no-doubter to right as long as it was fair. As Alberto grounds that one over the shortstop, Bichette can't field it. He does block it, but that'll be a base hit for Alberto, his 2nd of the game. That brings up Jose Iglesias, who actually had a pretty important walk in the 6th. Because, well, with 1 out and a runner at 2nd, at that point, if he had been out, I mean, that changes potentially the whole inning. As he flies that one to right, he'll get down in front of Hernandez. So runners at 1st and 2nd now after a couple singles here.
We're not going to be able to see it on the replay, unfortunately. Hernandez freezes in spot when this ball's lifted out to right field. If he read this ball properly, he would have been able to get that one before it dropped in, and that's why you saw Alberto freeze on contact, because that could have been a fly ball that was caught. Instead, it drops in for a base hit.
Count 1-0.
Nunez up now, 1 for 3, RBI'd in his last appearance in the 6th. The first of many. One 0 in there for a strike.
I got a ball, 1 strike.
As this game moves on now, it's very clear that the Jays offensively not the best day for them so far. Early on left a lot of runners on, just couldn't bring them home. And if they had brought a couple more of those home, we could be talking about a completely different game at the moment. Good lesson for a young team. But in this series, what should Blue Jays fans expect, from this team in these 3 games here?
Well, you should have a couple good pitching matchups in the next couple games, as the 2 aces for the Blue Jays, who have both looked really good, Hyun-Jin Ryu and Matt Shoemaker, pitched the next 2 games of the series. Ryu's got an ERA just above 3. Shoemaker's got one below 3. They both got 3 wins on the year, looking for their 4th, and I think you've got to hope that they can turn this series around as Nunez goes down swinging here, because the Jays, after the series against Baltimore, they go on the road trip for quite some time. They're not back until the 18th of May as they head to Oakland, Texas, and then the south side of Chicago. So this is a Jays team you're seeing near the top of the American League East, and depending on what the Yankees do, they could finish off in the sole possession of the lead by the end of this homestand. And you don't know as the year progresses how long you'll be able to see them in this spot.
So Anthony Santander now. You mentioned that. It's the first home series for a little while. We'll get to see some teams from the West, Oakland and Texas. That'll be fun. Full coverage of all that in the Virtual Jays Network. Some new teams, especially.
Well, hey, speaking of new teams, he wasn't in Toronto very long, but of course we have to congratulate Chase Anderson on a strong first outing with the Colorado Rockies earlier today from Detroit. In a little interleague play action, he went 8 innings with just 3 hits allowed for 1 earned, striking out 10 and not walking a single batter.
Wow. That's an incredible outing from Anderson. Easily the best of his season. Good for him. That adrenaline must have been flowing.
It's always nice to get a new start after 2 shaky outings where, for the Blue Jays, his last 2 outings, he wasn't able to get in past the 4th inning in either of them. Here, very obviously, very different as he goes 8 strong and, very dominating, and nice to see that for a guy like Chase Anderson.
So Santana walks. Bases are loaded, 2 out for Stevie Wilkerson. And a single back in the 2nd. First pitch misses low, and if you're Gaviglio here, you're just trying to get through this inning, but more importantly, the last thing you want right now is to ruin that, what's been a very solid ERA for him. Because again, there's competition in these bullpens. With Yamaguchi having a tough start, maybe this opens the door for Gaviglio to get some more high leverage situations, if he can perform well.
And that's exactly right. We've seen Yamaguchi pitched 34 innings before today's game, and Gaviglio just 6, as Montoya hasn't gone to him very often at all.
But we do see Montoya run with the hot hand, so that's my point. If Gaviglio can get going, as that one's flown into left, Gurriel should be able to make the play, and he does. So Gaviglio escapes the bases loaded, and we will now stretch in Toronto. Jays are down by 5.
Your attention, please. Now pitching for Baltimore, number 43.
Welcome back. It'll be Sean Armstrong getting into the game now for the Orioles here.
And he's a 3-pitch pitcher, working mostly with a fastball that'll sit mid to low 90s. But against a guy like Rowdy Tellez, the big pitch to be keeping an eye out for is the cutter. There's a fastball, cutter, slider, the latter two both breaking in against a lefty like Tellez, which makes the cutter a very effective pitch.
Taken for strike one. We see that cutter there. Of course, we talked a little bit in the last inning about Chase Anderson and his new digs. Colorado had a really good start. 8 innings, only allowed 1 earned, if I'm correct. And it's interesting. Never really had an outing like that in Toronto. And didn't spend too much time here, only about a month, as Jays moved on from him for an outfield prospect, some bonus pool money, plus gives them the opportunity to bring up Nate Pearson, who was needing to make his major league debut. Tellez strikes out looking, but now I don't think either team's going to be too mad at that. I think ideally for the Rockies and the Jays, that trade could be a win for both sides, potentially.
And for the Rockies, it was just because they needed someone that could slot in for reliable innings. It wasn't working with Jeff Hoffman to start the year. He's since been moved down to AAA as a result in the final of his option years. And Chase Anderson, I mean, so far so good. You can't complain with what he's brought to the team. And the Rockies, as similar to the Jays, weren't really expected for much this year, but off to a 22-11 start with today's win. That's nothing to sneeze at.
Jeff Hoffman back to AAA, eh? Imagine you heard that in 2015. Is that be his future? Very odd, because he was that prospect in the Tulo deal. I mean, I think everybody thought at the time that they knew he was going to be a star, or at least a very viable pitcher in Colorado, but it can be hard to establish yourself. The Coors effect and everything else. We talked a little bit about that yesterday with Chad Bettis, right? As Hernandez flies out, so 2 away now.
And for Hoffman, it's been a mix of issues. A lot of it just comes from, I mean, similarly back to what we talked about with Wojciechowski and Thornton, a lot of it comes from locating the fastball, and he hasn't been able to. His walk rate's been sky high, and when you've got enough problems dealing with hitters at Coors Field, the last thing you want to do is put more ducks on the pond with free passes. So that's what's been largely his problem, and he's got a few things to work out, that being one of them, and that deal hasn't really worked out well for either side, but Miguel Castro's kind of settled into a nice career here with the Orioles after that deal.
Funny how that works sometimes, eh? So Alfred flies up to center, 3 up, 3 down here in the 7th, as we head to the 8th in Toronto.
Your attention, please.
Welcome back. It'll be the lefty Thomas Pannone for the Jays here.
Number 45.
And we've seen Pannone in all sorts of different situations here. We're seeing him here now to close this game out. Hopefully, maybe pitching the 8th and 9th wouldn't be out of the question for the Jays. They've already spent 3 pitchers. He's the 4th to enter the game. Gaviglio looked good in his outing, and now we'll see if Pannone can keep it going.
Austin Wentz has had a great day at the plate. 2 for 3, couple RBI. Big double really broke things open in the 6th. Came around to score on the Davis home run the very next pitch. Yeah, Pannone, the only lefty, and I say that and I cringe a little bit. How is it that the Jays still only have one lefty? You got to think that their agenda, you know, as the season goes on, has got to be to bolster this bullpen with another lefty at least.
Well, I mean, with the new 3-batter minimum, you don't need that lefty 1-out guy that you used to have by default to deal with some of the big hitters. And another reason is that you don't quite have any big lefty bats you're too scared of in the American League East anymore. The Yankees are almost entirely right-handed, whether it be Sanchez, Judge, Torres, I mean, anyone else you want to name, Stanton. And same with the Rays. I mean, Austin Meadows hits well against both sides. For the Red Sox, you got a bit of an argument as they do have quite a few left-handed bats, but they don't have the same type of David Ortiz type big booming lefty that you have someone specifically on your roster just to deal with. And Pannon's been able to get the job done so far, and I mean the 3-batter minimum goes a long way to the extinction of that lefty specialist.
Oh, the good old days when Aaron Loup would come in to face Ortiz, and he would often get lit up, in fact. Most pitchers did from Ortiz. He was such an icon. Had the chance to see him live a couple years ago in his last year. That was great to see, you know. I always say, I got to see Jeter live here too, actually, his last series in Toronto. Get a chance to do it, man, because you can always tell your kids, your grandkids, you saw these famous players play. It's a lot better than on TV, I'll tell you that. 2-0 to Davis.
That's ball 3.
Davis is another guy when you talk back about the big lefty bats you used to keep a guy for. Davis, in his heyday, you would be fearing him for sure.
Oh, yeah. 53 home runs in 2013. Good God.
Well, one of the reasons when you asked why they didn't have anyone else, Tim Meza blowing out his elbow, he would have been in this bullpen for sure, so him going down doesn't help.
Certainly something to keep an eye on as the season goes on. Just, you know, because what if Pannone gets hurt? Or what if he's worked, 2-3 days in a row and you need to go to a lefty? It just feels like it's unsustainable long term, but hey, and again, that's why I'm in the booth and not managing, I suppose. As Davis strikes out.
Well, two of the teams we saw in the Central, the Royals and the Twins, who both came to town earlier this year, neither of them have a lefty in their bullpen except their closer, which is another interesting element. You don't usually see too many left-handed closers, but they haven't shied away from it, and those are two teams that have done quite well for themselves so far in 2020.
And the Twins look to be the real deal in the American League this year. We saw them a couple weeks back. That lineup can hit. If they can pick up a starter here down the road, and keep fortifying that pitching, all signs seem to point to a deep playoff run this year for the Twins. They just got to get over the hump of beating the Yankees. And we saw this weekend, that Yankees team is terrifying to face, especially if you're a pitcher.
And it's almost like it's almost fitting that the Yankees don't wear names on the back of their home jerseys, because it doesn't matter who it is. Mike Tauchman, Mike Ford, we didn't see him, but he's another guy. Luke Voigt. Doesn't matter whether it's the big name guys, or whether you have your Judge, or even you go back like your A-Rod, your Teixeiras. It doesn't have to be those guys, because the Yankees, top to bottom, they've been all hitting so far.
Exactly. Long gone are the days where they're making their entire lineup with overpaid players, right? I mean, I still remember when 2015 they had McCann, Ellsbury, Headley, guys who probably shouldn't have been getting paid what they were, but they were there because they could hit and they had a big name. Bit of a different philosophy in New York now. Regardless, Ruiz strikes out, so 3 up, 3 down for Pannone in the 8th. We'll head to the bottom part of the inning, still 6-1 Baltimore here on the virtual Jays Network.
Leading up for Toronto, the shortstop, Wojciechowski.
We saw Shawn Armstrong in 2 games in the series at Camden Yards. We saw him hardly pitch an inning under his belt so far this afternoon, or I guess this evening now, as the sun's fully set here in Toronto. Between those 3 games, he's now pitched 4 innings against the Jays, striking out 4 batters with just 1 hit allowed. Very dominant in this middle/long relief role.
I think if you're Baltimore here, you know, a silver line to games like these, and you've already got the win, yes, but also, if you're Baltimore, you get a chance to get some looks at some of these bullpen arms that you may not have already had. Right? You've got the lead now, a bit lower leverage, although you're still ahead, but by 5 runs in the 8th. Good opportunity to kind of also showcase a little bit some of these arms, because come the deadline, you know that Baltimore is just going to have a fire sale when it comes to their players. I mean, they have no desire to compete this year. So a good showcase for some of these pitchers as Bichette gets his first base hit of the day.
And you make a good point about having to really establish value, because coming into the 2020, you don't look at this roster and see anyone that's got history to really warrant them fetching much at the deadline. The guy that was on the roster that comes to mind, Jonathan VR, was dealt over the offseason, and they've kind of moved on from some other pieces, so they really have to work up and establish the value of who's left on this roster if they want to move any of them.
Pennick pops out into foul territory. Tough day for him. 0 for 3 with a walk. Another guy who's had a tough day at the plate is Guerrero Jr. 0 for 3. Couple strikeouts for the DH today. Starts off with strike 1 in there. 0-2 now as that slider gets in there. And Guerrero Jr., I had mentioned earlier that he might be back at defense. He's not today, but he's looked great defensively, as we talked about earlier. Really an area of importance. As that one's second baseman Alberto. Wow, look at that sequence of events. So he fumbles the ball and is unable, or he tags Bichette to get the out on the lead runner, and then whips it over to first, way over the head of Chris Davis, so Guerrero Jr. can head to second. 2 out, runner at second.
And so all said and done, the Jays have the runner on second and 2 away. So Guerrero reaches base for the first time today, but I'll tell you what, not how he would have expected he would.
Yeah, and good job by Alberto there to still be able to make the tag and get the lead runner. It's done a complete waste. You get the second out. Travis Shaw at the plate now. He's 0 for 1, couple walks. Sprays that one foul now, 1-2. Armstrong would love to get through another full inning here, and he does. Strikes out Shaw, so 2 innings, a scoreless ball from Armstrong. And we head to the 9th. It's 6-1 Orioles here in Toronto. So it'll be Justin Miller in the game now for the Blue Jays.
Not much rest for Miller. He pitched in yesterday's game. He struck out 2 batters against the Yankees as he came in somewhat early in that game after Pearson only managed to go 5 innings. A guy that, you still have to work up his stamina, work up his pitch count. He faced the 7-8-9 guys and was greeted by Luke Voigt, who hit a double deep to center field that looked like it had a chance to leave the park for a minute, but hits high off the wall for a double. He then geared in and struck out the next 2 guys, both swinging. And so now he'll face the top of the order instead for the Orioles and try and maybe hone some of the strikeouts instead of the double.
1 ball, 1 strike.
So 1-2-3 up. They've been a very productive 1-2-3 today. Alberto has reached 3 of 4 times. Hayes has reached twice. Iglesias has even reached twice.
I got the count 1 and 2.
One-two to the center fielder Hayes. Swung on, driven into the gap. That'll get down. Menendez cuts it off, and the ball goes right off his glove. So you can't field it cleanly. That means Hayes can cruise into second. Leadoff double.
And that'll be scored a double. I wasn't sure if it'd be a single and an error. I think double is fair because Hernandez does have to go a long way, and he tries to make an ambitious play to cut that ball off before it trickles any deeper into the gap. So it's a double as the speed of Hayes puts pressure on Teoscar Hernandez out there in right field quite a bit.
Inside, ball 1.
So Hanser Alberto, who, like I mentioned, has reached 3 different times today, was hit by a pitch in the third and has a couple singles. Runner in scoring position here.
Ball 2.
And like I said with the pitchers about them trying to raise their value, how about the hitters as well? Daylight today where you can really kind of juice your numbers a little bit. Well, why not? For the Orioles, you would love to see that. Alberto drives one into right. Hernandez fields this one cleanly this time. Hayes has to stay at second, 1 away.
And as Iglesias comes up now, he was kind of lost in the hype of last inning where his single was part of what ended up loading the bases. But his single in the 7th broke what was an 0 for his last 17 stretch coming into today's game. So the single gets him back in the hit column, and maybe that'll help turn things around.
Monkey off the back a little bit as that one's flowing into center. Alford makes the play and makes a good throw to Bichette.
So just 1 for 4 on the day for Iglesias. No, not the nicest day ever. Not a day that you'll look at and take too much pride in, per se. But, hey, you know what? A day that you can say you broke your cold streak, you scored a run after walking in the 6th part of the rally, and production that helped quite a bit in this Orioles lead.
Nunez now 1 for 4. RBI back in the 6th. A couple strikeouts today as well. 30 home runs last year. 31, I should say. A 1. Misses away. 2-1 now. Nunez has experience at Oakland and Texas. The two teams we'll be seeing pretty soon on the virtual Jays networks. That one's grounded short, should end the inning. And it does. So Miller comes in, and no runs allowed. So it's still a 6-1 game. All the runs for each team have been scored in 1 inning respectively. As we head to the bottom of the 9th, Jays looking to mount a comeback here.
Your attention, please. Now pitching for the Orioles.
Former Blue Jay Miguel Castro, who we talked a little bit about earlier, will get set to try to finish this one off for Baltimore here.
And he's got some shaky numbers on the year, you could say, an ERA of 6.06, and one of the guys in the back end of the pen that really hasn't had it locked down yet. The two setup men of Givens and Scott both really looking good, in addition to Paul Fry, who's the closer that still hasn't allowed a run yet. But the big problem for the Orioles has been bridging the gap to get there. As Armstrong, who looked good today, enters with an ERA closer to 4.5 than 4. And Castro himself, of course, with with certain problems in what he's been able to do so far. A lot of that coming from the walks. He's allowed 11 walks to just 8 strikeouts and 18 hits allowed in his 16 and a third innings of work. So some struggles on the mound for Castro, but he gets a chance here to face some pretty decent batters for the Jays, as it'll be 5, 6, 7, and maybe not the most high pressure situation for him to come into.
Notice on the bottom of the scorebook there, 11-10 for Kansas City right now. What a slugfest that is over there. 2-2 to Jansen. Swung on and missed. First strikeout of the day for the catcher.
Well, neither starting pitcher is set to have a decision at the end of the day here today. If this score holds up, it'll be the reliever Yamaguchi set to take the loss, and it'll be the reliever Cole Stewart set to take the win. And two guys in the pen that have been long relievers, and really speaks to how the battle of the bullpen ended up going so far today. Wojciechowski and Thornton both looked pretty good, and just 1 run allowed on the scoreboard when each of them left the game. Of course, Thornton charged with 2 other earned runs from runs he left on the bases that Yamaguchi wasn't able to strand, and they both came in to score. But both starting pitchers matched up. It's been the bullpens that have made the difference.
0-2 taken outside. And if I told you this would be a battle of the bullpens, I think you'd probably say Toronto's probably going to take it then. You know, they've had a really good bullpen. Not to say Baltimore's hasn't been good, but Toronto's has been so lethal, especially the back end. You'd be pretty comfortable with that, but today Montoya just doesn't get the kind of production he needs from a guy like Yamaguchi. And so Miguel Castro now, another guy who can try to maybe get his season back on track here, as you mentioned, Drew. Kind of one of the only arms right now in that pen for Baltimore, who's still trying to find his way. So good chance here in a lower leverage situation, but still in the 9th inning to get some good work in a park he's familiar with. Payoff to Gurriel. Swung on, fouled off. That one taken inside, so Gurriel walks with 1 away here. His 2nd time reaching base today.
And we mentioned it had been the walks giving problems for Castro so far this season. There's another one against Gurriel, and a situation where when you've got a 5-run cushion and you only need 2 more outs, you'd rather see Castro throwing strikes and challenging hitters, making them hit him, rather than putting more ducks on the pond for a guy like Rowdy Tellez that can shrink this deficit quickly with a big, powerful shot, when you'd be better off challenging Gurriel than giving him a free pass in this situation.
It's 2-0 now to Tellez here. Good count for him. And he had a shot in the 4th that was almost out of here. Middle fastball. We talked about it, Drew, but he torched it. Just missed the home run, however. .3-0 now to Tellez after a walk to Gurriel. Tellez drives that one into center field. Hayes there to make the play. 2 away now.
And 2 strikeouts and 2 shots to center for Rowdy Tellez today. The first one hit deeper than the second. That one hangs up for Hayes, and no problem there. The first one, he gave it a ride to the track, you mentioned, and he's shown some solid contacts in Toronto and since being called up, but he hasn't quite had the power manifest itself as one might expect.
1-0.
20-plus home runs last year. And yeah, so far just not really getting that yet. Again, that takes time, and starting your season at AAA probably doesn't help. 21 home runs for the lefty as Hernandez rips that one into left. That'll get down for a base hit. So runners on 1st and 2nd now, 2 away.
This ball's left up on the inner half of the plate. Teoscar Hernandez gets into the hit column. You've talked earlier about the struggles he's had so far in this homestand against both the Yankees and the Red Sox, getting a few days off in between in both of those series, and not necessarily tested in the field every day, but he's got 3 more games here against Baltimore to try and turn this homestand around. He kind of missed a bit of an opportunity so far today with just 1 hit and a walk, 1 for 3 on the day, but he'll have a chance with 2 more games left in this series before they head out to Oakland.
That's the ball.
Offered takes low, ball 1.
No strike.
Talked a little yesterday about how the AL West is pretty crazy right now. All the teams kind of all bunched up still, so those games should be good in Oakland to see what that team's all about. But also, those are some big games for Oakland. You get a team coming in who's, they're starting off their road trip, heading to the West Coast, time change, the whole deal. It should be fascinating. But first off, this game's got to conclude, and Castro steps on the bag, gets the final out, and finishes off the game for these Orioles, who take it 6-1 off the back of a wild 6th inning in which they put up all 6 of their runs.
You mentioned that the Orioles have had a pretty decent stretch of success, winning 7 of their last 12. Well, now you can make that 8 of their last 13 as they take this game to start the series in Toronto. And they put the Jays once again on their back foot, up against the wall if they want to still win this series. They took the first game in Camden Yards on the Friday night when it was Wojciechowski on the mound. He beat Hyun-Jin Ryu. Here the winning pitcher is Cole Stewart, but it's still Wojciechowski's start that he leads the Orioles to victory by throwing out 5 strong innings here tonight. And yeah, the Orioles again are put in a position where as they take the first game, the Jays are going to need to win 2 in a row if they want to win this series.
So the Jays fall to 20-15. Orioles advance to 10-25. Blue Jays have now lost 3 of their last 4. So tomorrow is a pretty big matchup. This is why you pay that starter Ryu, right? A chance to kind of stop what's been a tough go the last 4 games with your ace on the mound. A chance to beat a pretty vulnerable team here in Baltimore. And let's be honest, outside of the 6th inning, the Blue Jays played a pretty solid game. It just all fell apart at once. The entire lineup for the Orioles was able to bat. And it felt like every single time they made contact, it was going to be a base hit. Sometimes that's just how things go.
And that's exactly right. I mean, you take away that 6th inning, it's a 1-0 game. Of course, you can't quite do that. But I think one of the biggest injustices is Trent Thornton's charged with the loss here, and his line looking a lot uglier than it should, in my opinion. Of course, he is charged for 3 runs, and that's the way it is in baseball. The leadoff walk to Hayes in that inning was his fault, followed by the later walk to Iglesias and the RBI single by Nunez, but he leaves when this game's still 1-1. And Yamaguchi comes in, and the next 5 runs off of Baltimore's bats come with Yamaguchi on the mound, which is less than ideal for a relief pitcher that had looked pretty good coming into today, but regardless of who did what and who gets the blame, Thornton ultimately takes the loss, and a bit of a rough patch after 2 strong games, but again, for a number 5 guy in your rotation, you've got to take it as an acceptable outcome. And you mentioned with the pressure on Ryu, the expectations will be a little higher with your $20 million man on the mound tomorrow night.
Especially considering he lost last time out against Baltimore. Much needed win tomorrow. Try to get these Jays on track before they head out on the road, but we'll have full coverage of that game and much more for you. Be sure to check out our social media at VirtualJaysNet on Twitter. Be sure to check us out on Instagram and Facebook too. So for Drew Frank and Jackson Farough, we thank you for sticking around with us today. 6-1 Baltimore win. Jays have lost 3 of 4. And a big game tomorrow with Ryu versus Means on the mound. We'll see you then, everyone. Have a great evening.